Is everyone excited to be a ram? Who's ready for one more presentation? Just ready for some sleep? I get that. We do have one more presentation for you tonight. We are the Red Whistle Brigade. We are a peer education group run out of the WGAC. That is the Women and Gender Advocacy Center here on campus. We get to do really awesome things like this, and we're presenting to you about consent. And we're really glad that CSU lets us do this because not all campuses have this opportunity, and we get to talk to every incoming first-year student. And we think it's a really important topic. We're glad to be here. We're gonna make you glad to be here. So, with that being said, we're gonna introduce ourselves so that you know who's talking to you tonight. I'm Cole. I'm a third-year landscape architecture student here at CSU. I'm from Littleton, Colorado. Anyone from Littleton? Okay, and I'm here tonight because sexual assault is such a huge issue. It affects so many people in my life. It affects me. And I want to be part of changing the culture and not tolerating sexual assault anymore.
And I'm Marie. I'm a sociology major with a double minor in women's studies and ethnic studies. And I'm a super senior this year, so it's my victory lap. But I'm from Loveland. Anybody from Loveland? All right, there we go. I see some hands. The reason that I'm here today is because this is a topic that I'm very passionate about, and it's something that affects my life personally.
Hey everyone, my name's Cody. This will be my 4th year here at CSU, and I'm a microbiology major. And so I always just like to ask, got any scientists in the room? Okay. I'm from Cortez, Colorado. Anyone from Cortez? Okay, that's pretty usual. And the reason I'm talking to y'all tonight is because I think the information that we're all about to learn goes a long way towards making us all much better human beings.
Hi everyone, my name is Carissa. I'm a 4th year student, business management major with a women's studies minor. I'm from Fort Collins, Colorado. Who's with me? Well, you're all CSU Rams, so Fort Collins is your second home, so yay you. Congrats on being a Ram, that's super exciting. I'm here tonight because I identify as a survivor, and I'm really passionate about this subject, and I think it's really important for everyone here to understand.
All right, so now that you know a little bit about us, I'm going to let you know how this is going to look tonight. We're going to start and get everyone familiar with some of the terms we'll be talking about throughout the presentation, and then we'll dive into consent and what that means and what that looks like. Then we're going to talk about some different strategies towards ending sexual violence, and then a way that you can be the best support system for survivors in your life. After our presentation, you'll have about 20 minutes with your OLs outside in groups to discuss everything that you've heard. We don't have time for comments or questions during our presentation, so if something comes up, please just keep it in your head. We'll be walking around afterwards, so while you're in your groups, raise your hand, come up and talk to us if you have feedback, questions about content, or how to get involved. That's what we're here for. That's why we're here, so we'd love to talk to anyone. Now, with all that being said, we're going to go ahead and jump into the presentation.
All right, so the first thing we want to go over is create some guidelines, just so that we can have a safe space in here. So it's really important to understand at the WGAC, the Women and Gender Advocacy Center, we have a sex-positive philosophy. And what that means is whether you're having a lot of sex, no sex at all, or anywhere in between there, that's totally cool with us as long as there's consent. So all sexualities, all sexual practices, as long as there's consent. And a sex-positive philosophy is also really important because it allows space to have these conversations and talk about sex, because it's definitely something we don't talk enough about. And we know that currently on campus, 30% of CSU students are not currently sexually active.
And when we say currently sexually active, we don't mean like right now. Hopefully none of you are currently sexually active. But if you are, please don't make eye contact with me. Really appreciate that. Cool. So we do really like to use humor. It's a really great way to get a point across. I think we're funny. I hope you think we're funny. If not, it's not a big deal. I don't know any of you. That being said, that does not mean that we take this topic lightly at all. Statistically, we know that there are survivors of sexual assault and rape in the room. And we really want to respect them. And so we ask that everyone please use respectful language and behavior. Please don't talk on the side. Put your phone away. You can text your mom in an hour. It's not a big deal. And what we're just asking is please have respect. Just because something isn't impacting you doesn't mean it's not impacting someone around you. With that being said, I also want to emphasize the importance of self-care. We're going over some pretty heavy stuff tonight, and if you feel like you need to leave the room and get a drink of water, step out and get a breath of fresh air, whatever you need to do to take care of yourself, we're all for that. And we also know that there's some meetings and time conflicts that overlap with our presentation, so if you have to leave for either of those, feel free to do so, but please do so quietly.
And now we just want to go over some legal definitions to make sure that everyone's on the same page. So the first one we want to talk about is sexual assault. And sexual assault is actually an umbrella term, so it encompasses acts such as rape, but it is not synonymous to rape. So the definition of sexual assault is any sexual act where the person performing the act has not obtained consent from the other person. So if I go to a party and someone comes up and grabs my ass, that is sexual assault. And we also want to talk about the definition of rape, which is the intrusion of the vagina, anus, or mouth of a person without their consent. And the weapon of intrusion can be a tongue, penis, finger, or other object. And it's really important to understand that this is Colorado's legal definition, because it's much more progressive than other states because it allows for males to be victims, and it also allows for all identities to be included within it. So now that we all have some legal definitions and we're on the same page, we want to talk about some facts just to make sure that everyone in here understands the magnitude of the issue we're talking about. So first, we know that 1 in 4 women will be victims of sexual assault in their lifetime. And that usually happens between their sophomore year in high school to their sophomore year in college. And that's not to say that it doesn't happen before or after that time period, but we know that's the highest risk for women.
Now, we also know that 1 in 6 men will be victims of sexual assault in their lifetime. For men, this looks a little bit differently, and this usually happens before a young man's 14th birthday. But that's not to say that it doesn't happen afterwards. What is important to realize is that a lot of men are coming to college having had this experience. And I really want to stress that being the victim of sexual assault does not make them any less of a man. So, during our presentation, you might hear us use some gendered terms, or see skits where the male is a perpetrator and the female is a victim. And we really want to acknowledge that not all victims are female, and not all perpetrators are male. But statistically, more than 98% of perpetrators identify as male. And the vast majority of them identify as heterosexual. So, we're not saying that all men are perpetrators, that all men are rapists. That is not what we're saying. That is not what we want you to think. What we are saying is that the vast majority of perpetrators identify as male. And it's really important to understand that as we talk about this issue.
And it's also really important to understand that sexual violence occurs in all communities, regardless of race, class, sexual orientation, or religion. It cuts across all identities. And it's also really important to understand that on a college campus, more than 97% of victims know their perpetrator. And we don't say that as a scare tactic, but we definitely want you to keep that in mind because we're going to be talking about risk reduction versus prevention strategies later. So now we want to have Cody and Carissa come up and talk to everyone about consent.
Alright, so what is consent? That's a question a lot of you are probably asking yourselves. And it's a great question. I'm going to define it for us so we're all on the same page. Consent is the agreement to any sexual interaction. And what's really important about consent is that you get it for every interaction you engage within. It's not something that's given up front, and then there's assumed consent for everything else that follows. There needs to be constant check-ins to make sure everyone is in agreement with what's going on. I'm going to give you all an analogy to help put this in perspective. So let's say I have a friend, and they ask to borrow my car. And I consent and say, sure, you can borrow my car. But my friend ends up taking my car all the way to California. I'm not okay with that because I was only comfortable with my friend taking my car to Denver. And so just because I gave my friend consent initially to borrow my car does not mean that my friend can take my car as far as they want to take it. I need to be in agreement with everything that's going on. And the same thing goes with sexual interactions. Now there are 3 things you need to legally obtain consent. And you need all 3 of them or consent is not present. The first is cooperation in act and attitude. The second, an exercise of free will. And third, having knowledge of what is happening. And we're going to dive into what all three of these pieces are a little bit further, so everyone here has a really solid understanding about what consent is and how to recognize when it's there or not. So the first one, cooperation in act and attitude. This is a verbal and physical yes. All parties involved are really excited about what's happening, and they want what's happening to happen. If you hear any responses like, I'm not so sure, maybe we should slow down, we should wait a while, or if there's silence, those are all firm no's, and that should be respected. It's really important for everyone to understand that the absence of a no is not a yes. And so let's look at it this way. If I have a really big crush on Cody, and I decide I want to ask him out on a date, and I go up to Cody and say, hey Cody, do you want to go on a date with me tonight at 7?
Carissa, I have a big exam tomorrow.
So if Cody gives me a response like that, or he's saying he has other things to do, he's not jumping up and down excited I just asked him out. I'm not going to show up at his house or his residence hall that night at 7 ready for a date. That would be embarrassing, and it wouldn't happen. The same thing goes with sexual interactions. If the person I'm engaging with is not verbally and physically excited and enthusiastic about what's going on, I'm not going to pursue it.
And next we have exercise of free will. And what we mean by exercise of free will is that people are participating in the sexual act because they want to, not because they were pressured, not because they were coerced, and not because they have any fear of future consequences. So, for example, hey Carissa, you want to give me a high five?
I don't know how I feel about that.
Okay, Carissa, well if you don't give me a high five, I'm not going to be your friend anymore.
What? Well, if you're not going to be my friend anymore.
All right, obviously Carissa did not want to give me a high five, and I used pressure to get that high five from her. It's not okay to use pressure to get a high five. It's definitely not okay to use pressure for sex.
So the third one, knowledge of what's happening. This just means that all parties involved have the cognitive ability to know what they're agreeing to. And this is where intoxicants come into play, so like drugs and alcohol. And these two things can really impair a person's ability to legally give consent. So it's never okay to put drugs like roofies in someone's drink for sex, and it's never okay to use alcohol as a loosening agent for sex. Now I think we all know some pretty obvious signs of when someone's drunk. They're slurring their words, their eyes are rolling to the back of their head, they can't stand up straight so they're leaning up against someone or something. And so another analogy, if my friend is completely wasted and they come up and ask to borrow my car, I'm not going to give them the keys to my car because I know they're not in the right state of mind to know what they're asking for, to know what they're going to do. And so if they get behind the wheel, they're probably going to inflict harm on themselves or somebody else. And so I'm going to wait until the morning when we're all sober. And if my friend still wants to borrow my car, we can talk about what consent looks like then. The same thing goes with sexual interactions.
And on that note, another commonly asked question we receive is, okay, what if both people are drunk? Or what if both people have been drinking? What does consent look like then? And that's a very good question, and fortunately there's a simple answer. So look at it this way. If someone is walking home and they get hit by a drunk driver, we never even ask if that pedestrian had been drinking, because it becomes completely irrelevant. We know that that drunk driver is the one responsible because that drunk driver is the one that committed the crime. The exact same thing goes for sexual assault. The person that commits the act is going to be the one that's held responsible.
So just to sum up one more time, the three elements you need to legally obtain consent, they are cooperation in act and attitude, an exercise of free will, and knowledge of what is happening.
And now that you have all just finished learning the three elements of consent, we have a short demo prepared to kind of show you what that can look like. And so if you look at the bottom of the slide, you'll see those three elements of consent, so definitely watch for those. And with much pleasure, I would like to welcome you all to the Consent Cafe.
All right, sorry about the wait on those fries.
No problem.
And 2 beers.
Oh yeah.
And a milkshake. You two have fun in Consent Cafe.
Oh, we will. Oh, Carissa, those fries look so tasty.
They're so...
Consent fail. What did he do wrong? That's right, he didn't ask. There's no consent if he didn't even ask. Let's try that again.
Carissa. Those fries smell so delicious.
Oh, these fries are amazing.
Do you think maybe I can have some?
Consent fail. What did he do wrong? That's right, he didn't wait for a response. He definitely doesn't have cooperation in act and attitude. Carissa does not want him to have her fries. Let's try that again.
Dang, Carissa. Those fries look so good tonight.
My fries are good every night.
I bet they are. You think maybe I can have some?
No, I'm pretty hungry right now.
Come on, Carissa. We're in the Consent Cafe. Feel the mood. Share some fries.
I don't want to share my fries right now.
Okay, Carissa. How about not all your fries? Maybe just like 1 or 2.
If you're so hungry, why don't you go get your own fries?
Ooh, Carissa. I've had my own fries before. And they are just not gonna cut it tonight.
If it'll get you to stop asking.
Thank you so much.
Consent fail. What did he do wrong? That's right, he used pressure. You can't use pressure to obtain consent. Let's do that again.
Carissa, those fries look mighty fine.
Oh, these fries are so good.
Do you think maybe I can have some?
No, not right now.
Come on, Carissa. You haven't even touched your beer yet.
Oh, that's true. I guess it is probably getting kind of warm.
Yeah, bottoms up.
Ooh, college, turn up.
Woo!
Oh, we got tired.
Yeah, it's pretty cozy in here. Well, I guess Carissa won't mind if I just jump right in there.
Consent fail. What did he do wrong? That's right, he used intoxicants. Carissa has no idea what's happening right now. This is not consent. Let's give him one more try.
Carissa, those fries look so tasty tonight.
Oh, these fries are amazing.
Do you think maybe I can have some?
You see, I usually don't share my fries with someone I've just met, so maybe we could wait a while?
Oh, yeah, definitely. That makes sense. Thanks for telling me.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're into it, you can try some of my milkshake if you want.
I'm all over that.
Consent wins!
Let's give it up one more time for Cody, Carissa, and Marie. So, it's really easy to talk about consent in another context like jacking your friend's fries because it's so obvious whether or not consent is present. And everything that we just looked at applies directly to sexual situations. So, in order to obtain consent, you need to have an enthusiastic and affirmative yes, both verbally and physically, from the other person who is sober and able to make their own decisions. Doing that's not only the right thing to do, it's the legal thing to do, but it can actually help you have better sex. Yeah, damn right. Better sex. Yeah. None of you thought you were getting this tonight, but here we go. So, you might say, hey, if I have to stop and get consent, isn't that gonna kill the mood? Won't that ruin sex? No, you're doing that wrong. But consent doesn't have to be like a weird thing. It's not like a, can I touch your hair? Hopefully that is not what you're doing. But Oh, consent is so easy. Consent is so simple. It is sexy. Let me show you how. So, consent. It's as easy as saying, hey, what do you like to do? Do you want to try that position? How about we do that upside down? And it's so good because it allows you to have those conversations, and understanding what your partner likes really enhances sex. So, consent. Now that I've made that nice and awkward for like everyone here, we're going to go ahead and shift topics a little bit and talk about some strategies for ending sexual violence. The first is primary prevention. That's kind of what we're doing tonight. It's making sure that everyone understands what consent is, and then we all know the definition of rape and sexual assault. It means that we're all taking that responsibility to obtain consent in every situation that we go into. And it means respecting boundaries. If someone says no, that means no. Now, the next approach is bystander intervention. That's probably something that most of you have heard before. It's being able to recognize a sketchy situation where someone's boundaries are being crossed, where they're not comfortable with what's happening, and being able to intervene into that situation in an appropriate manner.
And the third is risk reduction strategies. And risk reduction strategies are strategies that an individual uses to lower their risk of being assaulted. And that's things like carrying mace on your keychain, or taking a self-defense course, or setting boundaries. And setting boundaries is one that you may not commonly think of, but it's a really important skill to have. And at the WGAC, we use an acronym to remember how to set boundaries. And that's SAFE. S, say it, A, again, F, firm, and E, exit. And now me and Cole want to go through each one of those steps just so that everyone in here has a good understanding of how to set boundaries.
All right, so the first step is S, say it. It's really useful because maybe the other person didn't realize that they were crossing a boundary. And that doesn't only apply to sexual situations. It could be something like, no, I don't want to dance with you. It's also really helpful because it allows for bystanders in the area to hear that there's something going on that you're not comfortable with.
And the second step in setting boundaries is again. And that means that by this time, this person hasn't listened to your boundary once, so you really want to clearly name that boundary again and make sure they know exactly what you want from the situation. So telling them, I don't want to dance with you. And this is also really important because it gives bystanders a second chance to kind of hear what's going on and maybe check in.
Now, the third step is F, firm. That's repeating it again, but with a change of tone and a change of intent. By now, you've said no a couple times, and this person's still creeping on you. So, you have every right to say whatever is comfortable for you to let them know that what they're doing is not okay with you. Whether that looks like, hey, I've told you a couple times I don't want to dance, or I said no, back off. Whatever is comfortable for you, you are more than empowered to say whatever you need to let them know that that situation is not okay. And if you've had to say no a couple of times and they're still pressuring you, it's a good red flag that you can totally start looking for an exit out of that situation. And as a bystander, if you see this going on, where someone's saying no and someone's pressuring them, trying to turn that no into a yes, which we know is not consent, it's a really great opportunity to check in on that situation and see if that person wants to use you as a tool to exit.
And that leads us to our last step in setting boundaries, which is exit. So by this point, this person is clearly not respecting your boundary. And it's really important that you understand you have the right to set your own boundaries and feel empowered to notice when those boundaries are being encroached upon. And this step is really important because it's about doing your best to get out of that situation. And that may look differently for different people. So it could be grabbing a friend and going to another room, or completely ending a date. Whatever you need to do your best to get out of that situation is totally cool. So now that we all have an understanding of how to set up boundaries, we have a demonstration we want to show you just to give you a real life example how to do that. So we're going to the juice box party. Yeah, that's funny. And while we're at the juice box party, keep in mind the SAFE acronym. S, say it, A, again, F, firm, and E, exit.
And now before we get started, I just want to introduce the characters. So first we have Carissa and her best friend Cody. That's me. We're really excited. We're going to go to a party. We're going to see some of our floor mates, namely Cole. Okay. And then Marie over here is going to be acting as Carissa's internal thought bubble. So she's going to be popping out every once in a while to give us some insight into what's going on in Carissa's mind.
I am so excited to go to this party tonight. Me and my bestie Cody are gonna go, and my crush Cole from 2 doors down on my floor is gonna be there. I am so excited. It's gonna be a good night.
Hey, Cole.
What's up?
Hey, Darren.
Hey, bye, Cody. Hey, so how's the party going? It looks so fun.
I mean, it's not bad, but it's really hot in there. Do you mind if we just go outside and chat?
Sure.
Cool.
So how'd that test end up going last week?
Oh, it was a breeze. Did my notes help you out?
Oh, your notes practically got me the A on that test. Thank you so much for letting me use them.
Well, I do what I do. Listen, it's kind of a bunch of weirdos in there. Do you mind if we just go back to the hall and we could make our own fun? Maybe watch a movie or something?
I just got to this party, and this party is bumpin'. I am definitely not ready to leave. I know Cole's been here for a while, but I really hope he wants to stay and have a good time with me. Say it.
Cole, I just got to the party. I haven't even had a chance to say hi to our other floor mates yet. I'm having fun. I definitely don't want to leave yet.
I mean, I get that. I've just been here for a while, so how about I come back and I'll get you in 15 minutes and we can go back to the dorms.
I'm kind of starting to feel slightly uncomfortable. I've already told Cole I don't want to go back to the hall with him. I want to stay at this party and have a good time. Again.
Aw, Cole, you know 15 minutes isn't long enough? I told you, I just got here. I definitely don't want to go back to the residence halls yet. I want to stay at the party.
Carissa. Look, I did get you those notes, so the least you could do is just walk back with me and watch a movie.
Are you kidding me? I've told him several times I do not want to go back to the halls with him, and I don't owe him anything for letting me borrow notes. He keeps pushing my boundaries, and this is not cool. Firm.
So Cole, I'm really appreciative you let me borrow your notes and all, but I didn't know there were expectations tied to me using them. I've told you multiple times, I don't want to go back to the residence halls with you right now. I want to stay at the party.
Carissa, it is late, it is dark, and it is a long way back. I don't want to go alone. If you would just walk with me, I'd really appreciate the company.
Oh, there you are, Carissa. Oh, hey, Cole. How you both doing?
Good.
Can I get you both something to drink?
No, I'm fine.
Yeah, but can you wait for me for 1 second, Cody?
Yeah, no problem.
I was really excited to go to this party tonight, but all my crush Cole did all night was push my boundaries and not respect my boundaries. So I'm gonna get out of here. Exit.
Cole, you're really not listening to me. I've told you over and over, I don't want to go back to the residence halls, and I want to stay at the party. I'm going to go hang out with Cody and the rest of our floor mates. If you want to hang out with us, awesome. But either way, I'm not walking back with you.
All right, let's give it up for the boundary demo. All right, so boundaries are a really important skill to have, and SAFE is a great acronym to use to remember how to set those boundaries. And it's S, say it, A, again, F, firm, and E, exit. But it's also really important to understand however you want to set your boundaries is totally cool. So if someone encroaches upon my boundary once and I'm not feeling it, I have every right to do my best to get out of that situation. And setting boundaries and risk reduction strategies can feel really empowering, but they don't necessarily prevent an assault from happening. So we have an analogy to kind of put it in perspective. If I want to reduce my risk of getting in an accident as a driver, I'm going to be a really safe driver. I'm going to drive at 10 and 2, always go the speed limit, wear my seatbelt, but that doesn't prevent another driver from coming up and smacking into the side of me. It doesn't prevent an accident from happening, and that's the same with risk reduction strategies and sexual assault.
Now, during that skit, it might not have seemed like Cody actually did that much. All he did was pop in and ask if we wanted something to drink. And while that might not seem like a big deal, that's actually a really easy way to be a bystander. If you notice that your friend's off alone with someone, or you notice a situation that's kind of sketchy, and you don't want to go in and make it a confrontation, just going in and saying, hey, how are things going? Can I get you anything to drink? is a really great way to introduce yourself into that situation and allow that person to use you to exit if that's what they need to do. So, we've talked a lot about SAFE and risk reduction, and they are both really empowering. Everyone has the right to feel safe, and taking safety into your own hands can be incredibly empowering. But society tends to focus a lot on risk reduction and not so much on anything else. And what that does in cases of sexual assault is it pulls the focus away from perpetrators of sexual assault and their responsibility to have obtained consent, and it puts the focus on victims of sexual assault. And it asks questions that make it seem like it was their responsibility to prevent the assault from happening. And we know that is absolutely ridiculous. It is never the victim's fault. So, to help illustrate this, we've got a live theater experience for you all. And we're going to show you how absurd it is to put blame on the victim in another context.
Order, order, order. All right, what do we have here today? Looks like we're settling a robbery case of sorts.
That's correct, Your Honor. Now, Mr. Smith, you were held up at gunpoint at the corner of 1st and Main.
Correct.
Did you struggle with the robber?
No.
Why not?
Well, he had a gun.
I see. So you made a conscious decision to comply with his demands rather than resist?
Well, yeah.
Did you scream, cry out?
No, I was afraid.
I see. Have you ever been held up before, Mr. Smith?
No.
Have you ever given money away before?
Well, yeah, of course.
Ah, and you did so willingly.
What are you getting at?
Well, you see, Mr. Smith, you've given money away in the past. In fact, you have quite the reputation for philanthropy. Case in point, Exhibit A.
That's ridiculous.
Now, Mr. Smith, how can we be so sure that you aren't contriving to have your money taken from you by force?
Listen, if I wanted
Never mind, Mr. Smith. What time was this holdup?
I don't know, 11 p.m.?
You were out on the streets at 11 p.m. doing what?
Just walking.
Just walking. You're aware it's dangerous to be out on the streets that late. You weren't aware you could have been held up?
I suppose I never thought about it.
What were you wearing, Mr. Smith?
What was I wearing? A suit, I guess.
Ah, an expensive suit.
Well, yeah, it was Armani.
So in other words, Mr. Smith, you were out on the streets late at night practically advertising the fact that you were a target for easy money. I mean, if we didn't know better, Mr. Smith, we might say you were asking for it. Mightn't we?
Order, order, order. This is ridiculous. You're blaming the victim. The real question should be who mugged Mr. Smith and why that person thought it was okay to do. You're a terrible lawyer. Where'd you get your law degree? CU Law School? Preposterous. Get out of here.
All right, so who thought it was absolutely ridiculous that Mr. Smith, Cody, was being blamed for being robbed? Yeah, it should be everyone. But what's really sad is that this happens quite frequently in cases of sexual assault. We see questions asked like, what were they wearing? Had they been drinking? Why didn't they fight back? And all of those questions make it seem like it was the victim's responsibility to prevent the assault. And we know that is not the case. What we need to focus on is perpetrators of sexual assault and why they did not obtain consent. So, we've gone over quite a bit, so I want to take a step back and kind of sum up some of the concepts that we've been talking about.
All right, so it's really important to understand that the only person who causes rape is the person who chooses to commit it. It is never the victim or survivor's fault. So we have another analogy. I should be able to go out and get wasted drunk, stumble home, take off all my clothes, and pass out naked in the alleyway. And the only way that I will wake up a victim of sexual assault is if somebody chooses to capitalize on my vulnerability.
And risk reduction strategies are really empowering because everyone has the right to feel safe. And bystander intervention is a really great way to stop sexual assault in the moment as we see it happening around us. But neither of these strategies actually prevent the assaults from happening in the first place. So, I know that as long as I obtain consent in every situation that I go into, I'm never going to be the cause of a sexual assault. And if we all make that pledge, we can work towards ending sexual assault here at CSU and around Fort Collins. And obtaining consent and asking for consent is a really easy thing to do. It's not that hard. We can definitely get on board with this. So, now that we've talked about some ways that we can work towards ending sexual violence, we want to talk to you about ways that you can support people that are survivors of sexual assault in your life. So we're going to bring out Carissa and Cody to talk to you all about how to be the best support system for survivors.
So we mentioned earlier that 1 in 4 women and 1 in 6 men will become victims of sexual assault in their lifetime. So the chances of y'all knowing someone that identifies as a survivor is really likely. And we want to be able to give you the tools to be that best support system for survivors in your life. Hence why we call it Best Support. So let's look into what BEST actually stands for. The B stands for believe them, E stands for empower them, S stands for support them, and T stands for tell someone how you feel. And we're going to dive into what all 4 of these pieces are a lot more so everyone here can be that best support system for survivors in your life. So B, believe them. This just means if someone is coming to you and confiding in you about their unfortunate experience with sexual assault, that you believe what they're telling you is true. We know from FBI statistics that less than 2% of reported sexual assaults are false or made up. So the chances of this person confiding in you about their experience and they're lying about it is really unlikely. So it's really important that you validate what they're saying and believe what they're saying is true. In my personal experience, when I told my best friend what happened to me for the first time, it was the scariest moment of my life. I kid you not. I honestly thought I was going to be blamed for what happened and that I wasn't going to be believed. But when my best friend just said, Carissa, I am so sorry that happened to you and it wasn't your fault, those 2 sentences, they sound so simple, but they were tremendous for me to hear, and I felt extremely validated, and I knew I had someone in my corner.
And next is E, empower them. And what this can look like is giving that person resources to choose from. Even very little decisions can make a very big difference. So for example, thank you so much for telling me. Before we continue, would you like the blinds open? Would you like the blinds closed? And now it seemed like a silly little decision, but what all of those little decisions do is they give some power back to that survivor. And also later on in this presentation, you will all receive the Victims Assistance Team number, and that phone number is a very, very great resource to have. And if someone just told you about their experience, you can say, hey, thank you so much for telling me. I have the Victims Assistance Team number. Would you like me to call you an advocate? Or if you're feeling comfortable, like please, here's the number. Call yourself an advocate.
So S, support them. This just means that you remain a safe and affirming person that the survivor can come to whenever they feel the need. It's never saying things like, come on, move on, the sexual assault happened like 6 months ago, why are you still dwelling on it? It's never saying anything like that because that's not things survivors want to hear. We all know from our own personal experiences with traumatic situations that we all take different amounts of time to heal. And the same thing goes with survivors of sexual assault. And so there's no cookie cutter, every survivor is going to reach this point 3 months down the road. It doesn't work like that. Every survivor takes different amounts of time to heal, they need different resources, and they need different types and levels of support. So just saying, I'm here for you whenever you need me, and then following through with that in the weeks and months to come, and just remaining that solid support system that a survivor can turn to whenever they need.
And finally, T, tell someone how you feel. Now this doesn't mean to go around and talk to other people about what you just heard, but we do think it is very important that you talk with someone else about how you're feeling. What this can do is allow you to better take care of yourself, and it also allows you to remain a better support over time. And also having heard that can be really tough to hear. And so if you've been having trouble focusing in class or having trouble concentrating, it might be a very good idea for you to call yourself an advocate.
So to sum up one more time, the best support system for survivors, the B stands for believe them, E stands for empower them, S stands for support them, and T stands for tell someone how you feel.
And now we have a couple more terms that we'd like to go over, and that's primary and secondary survivor. And so a primary survivor is someone that is directly affected by a sexual assault. And a secondary survivor is someone that is indirectly affected by that sexual assault. And a secondary survivor has some sort of relationship to that primary survivor, whatever that relationship might look like, whether it's family members, friends, teachers, mentors, what have you. And so, for example, if my brother came up and told me that he was sexually assaulted, my brother would be the primary survivor, and I would then become a secondary survivor.
So we're going to have Marie and Cole come back up here, talk about confidentiality, talk about mandated reporters on campus, and then also some confidential resources we have here at CSU.
All right. It's been really great. We've got a few more minutes for you all. I really love everyone's energy and your attention. You've been a freaking awesome crowd. Really quick, confidentiality. What is a confidential resource? CSU has a ton of resources available, and that can include faculty members. But some of these resources are mandated reporters. And mandated reporters are people that are required by law to report an incident of sexual assault if you are to disclose that to them. So that includes people like your orientation leaders, RAs, mentors, or staff and faculty. And they all want to be there for you. They all want to help you. But they are legally required to report if you disclose an incident to them. So we have some confidential resources that you can go to, which is a place that if you disclose an incident, that's going to remain just between you and that resource.
And some of those confidential resources that we have here on campus are the CSU Health Network, both the counseling and medical side, and Victims Advocates. And Victims Advocates are out of the WGAC, the Women and Gender Advocacy Center, the same office that we're up here representing tonight. It's a great resource here on campus because not only does it allow you to kind of sit down with somebody and process your experience, it also allows you to have all of the resources at your fingertips so that you can choose the way that you want to move forward. And the last confidential resource we have here on campus is VACT, which is the Victims Assistance Team. We talked a little bit about that earlier, but it's a 24-hour crisis hotline for primary and secondary survivors, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that in just a second. So now we want to have everyone come back up on stage, and we want to talk to everyone about how you can get involved here on campus.
So the first thing you can do is enroll in Women's Studies 397, which is Intro to Gender-Based Violence in a U.S. Context. The course is awesome. We've all taken it. I just took it last semester, and it's really cool because you get to have conversations about these issues on a daily basis and dig deeper. And for me, it really sparked a passion for me to want to pursue activism in my local community and also on campus. And all of you can take it as a free elective, so we definitely recommend it. And so when I was passionate about wanting to pursue activism, that's what led me to the Red Whistle Brigade, which we're all here representing. Cole mentioned earlier that we're peer educators on campus, and we host tons of educational programming on gender issues, healthy sex education, healthy relationships, and we do it in really fun ways. Whether it's facilitations like this with funny skits or a flash mob out on the plaza. Whatever we're doing, we're trying to bring awareness to these issues, and we're trying to get people on campus involved and aware of what's going on. So if that's not incentive enough, we also get paid to do what we're doing, and we get paid really well. So right now, we're getting paid to talk to all of you. And I do speak for all of us when I say we would do this even if we weren't getting paid, but as you will soon learn as a college student, it is never a bad thing to have extra cash in your pocket. So if you're interested in the Red Whistle Brigade or the course, feel free and come up and talk to us after the presentation.
And the next thing that everyone should get involved in here on campus is CTMO. And CTMO is the Consent Turns Me On campaign. Why? Because consent does turn us on. And CTMO is a year-long campaign, but it culminates in April because it's Sexual Assault Awareness Month. So we'll be on the plaza giving away free t-shirts. So everyone should definitely come check us out.
Another way to get involved is a group called Men in the Movement. It's a group geared towards male-identified students, and we get to have really great conversations about these issues. And we talk about what is our role as men in being allies and towards ending sexual violence. So we get to have really great weekly discussions, and there's also open monthly sessions for people of all identities. So it's a really great place. If you want to get more information about that, both Cody and myself are members, so feel free to come up and talk to us after the presentation.
And the next thing we want to encourage is for everyone to stop by the Women and Gender Advocacy Center. We would love to interact with everyone. If you just want to come and talk about more of these issues, if you want to talk about how to get involved, whatever you want to come and talk to us about, we'd love for you to come and see us. And I really want to stress that just because it's the Women and Gender Advocacy Center, it doesn't mean that we're only open for women-identified individuals. We love all identities, and we want to interact with every single one of you. So please feel free to stop by. We're located right next to the financial aid building, and yeah, we'd love to see you.
And finally, we have the Victims Assistance Team. And now you all have heard us mention it a couple of times, so I'm just going to go into it a little bit deeper. So just to reiterate, the Victims Assistance Team is a 24/7, weekdays, weekends, holidays hotline designed to support both primary and secondary survivors of sexual assault. And this hotline is staffed by certified victims advocates, and it is a completely confidential resource if that's what you're looking for. I myself was trained as a victims advocate a couple of years ago now, and it's probably the best thing that I've done here at CSU. It's given me a lot of purpose, it's been a really great way to be involved, and it allows me to work one-on-one with both primary and secondary survivors. And so if that's something that sounds interesting to you all, please come up and talk to me afterwards, because it's a really great way to get involved. And now if you will all please get out your cell phones.
Please get them out.
That number is on the slide, but I'm just going to say it out loud a couple of times. That way you all can hear it. And so that phone number is 970-492-4242. And once again, that number is 970-492-4242.
And I know you all may be thinking, I don't need this number, but there's nothing more satisfying than someone coming and confiding in you and you having a resource to give to them to empower them in their experience with sexual assault. So if you didn't get the chance to get the number now, please come up afterwards and we can give it to you then. It's a great resource to have. So. All right, well that's all we have for you. Thank you so much for staying engaged with us. And right now you're going to get up and go meet with your orientation leaders and talk about what happened. So please ask for consent from